Ask Dan Schneider. William Bell asked me, Dan, you have written on and done some shows about race and racism. What are your views on race? Do you think it exists? And what do you think of racism? Well, obviously, I'm not for or pro racism, but clearly race does exist. The big conflation that people make about race is that it doesn't exist simply because it's a shallow morphological thing. But just because something is shallow does not mean that it doesn't exist. Another thing that race often has is that people think that people of all races are good at all things. All blacks are athletic. All people from Eastern Asia, what we used to call Orientals, are intelligent. All white people are this, or all this people are that. I recently went to a track and field meet at a Texas high school where I saw a very interesting thing. It was an almost perfect demographic representation of the United States. Of all of the competitors, the majority were white, male and female. There was about maybe 10, 11, maybe about 1 out of 10 were black children, about maybe 15 to 20% were Hispanic competitors, and there were literally just a handful of people from Asia. And the interesting thing was, if you looked at who won all the races, who won all the events, it broke down in almost that exact same percentage. About two-thirds of the people who won the races or dominated the races were white. There was only maybe a small percentage of black winners, a slightly higher percentage of success by the Hispanics, and not a single Asian won anything. Now, the reason I bring this up is that oftentimes you hear how blacks are better at sports, but this high school meet showed that when given equal opportunities, you will get almost a perfect statistical representation of excellence in those fields. The difference is all of those white kids who are dominating the running races and the track and field and other sports will likely drop out and won't pursue it because they have no opportunities beyond, because they do have opportunities beyond track and field, whereas the minority kids don't. So as those kids who are the better, the white kids drop out, you get a skewed view that somehow blacks are more dominant, or even Hispanics in some areas. But that is not true, because when you go down to the high school level where kids are just competing for their schools and the best kids in the schools are based basically on their statistical representation, you get a much clearer picture. And that picture is that it is a statistical anomaly that shows that blacks dominate in the sports, because there's very little else where for them to dominate in American society. So they get funneled into sports, whereas the white kids, it's a lot easier to get a degree in business and make, 50 or 60 or 100,000 than it is for a black person. So that those kids, and for example, in the long distance races, there was a white girl that almost lapped the worst runner in her field. There was a white kid who dominated and just blew everyone by. And even in the short sprint races, the whites dominated. But that white kid that could be the world's best sprinter and be the next Usain Bolt is likely not going to pursue it because they don't have to. They have opportunities elsewhere. So anyway, it was an interesting thing, and I'm glad that I've been asked about race, because clearly it does exist, and clearly a lot of the notions about race are utterly stupid and uninformed by reality, and more by statistical quirks and biases.